Welcome back to Free Media. I'm Amber Duke.
And I'm Robby Soave. Michelle Obama's new podcast is bombing. Despite being one of the most recognizable people in the world, the former First Lady appears to be struggling to gain traction in an admittedly crowded podcast landscape.
This comes a month after launching IMO, or In My Opinion, with her brother Craig Robinson. Despite a splashy debut and a lineup of well-known guests, the show has experienced a noticeable dip in YouTube viewership and is trailing behind competing podcasts in the rankings. Let's go back and watch their announcement video.
Hey TikTok, it's Michelle Obama and I'm here with my big brother Craig.
Hey everybody.
We're here because we're excited to announce the launch of our new podcast called IMO with Michelle Obama and Craig Robinson.
And we just posted the trailer if you want to check it out.
Check it out. Thanks you guys. See you soon.
Well, that was really compelling. I can't imagine why people are watching.
I had to just double check because, Craig Robinson is the name of an actor. He's the guy, he was in The Office, the funny black guy. And I'm like, there's no way they're related.
Is that the guy who spilled the chili?
Does he spill? I didn't watch.
Or
all
no,
of
that was
like
Kevin.
A lot of
I
things.
didn't watch The Office. I don't like British humor, but
you certainly know what you've seen.
I know who you're talking about.
You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah,
right?
Definitely not the same guy.
No, it's definitely not the same guy.
I think that might be racist.
Well, it's just like it's a common name, I guess. So I'm like, a podcast with them. But it's just with her brother, who's not a famous,
he's like
hilarious
he was a
dude.
college football coach or something.
Well, whatever. Anyway, nobody's watching it. That's sad for them. And is that the death knell to the idea that Michelle Obama is this uniquely charismatic or interesting or beloved Oprah-like figure who would easily win the Democratic nomination if she was politically interested? She's not politically interested, so maybe it doesn't matter. But I was always slightly skeptical of that.
It definitely doesn't help. I was always skeptical of it too.
Yeah.
I mean, the weird thing is the podcast is just her and her brother talking about themselves for the most part and like random life events. And if people were going to tune into a Michelle Obama podcast, it would be for her giving her opinion on politics.
Right.
So she's trying to fill this space or develop this audience that I just don't think exists.
Yeah, it is not working in so many cases for just like already elite, wealthy, or political people to just say, I'll just have a podcast and everyone will tune in. I mean, some people will tune in, but it's not going to make $1 gazillion, and they negotiate these just insane contracts for themselves, and business people think, Obama, sure, that's a sure winner in this space. And it does okay, but it's not, because they didn't rise up through the natural podcasting alternate media ecosystem where you actually have to work, as you and I know, work hard to win over an audience, to be saying something that actually naturally resonates with people or catches YouTube's algorithm or whatever it is, but you get yourself out there and you're appealing to people, and then they tune in and then they want to watch. The top-down way of just selecting someone at like a company-level decision that, Obama, everybody likes him, and then forcing that on people just does not work.
No, I mean, even Gavin Newsom, when he launched his podcast, the only reason that people were interested to listen to it was because he decided to have these cross-political conversations with really heavy-hitting conservative influencers and have a real debate about issues. If it were just Gavin Newsom behind a microphone talking to the ether, I don't think it would work.
Just talking about his hairstyle.
I don't think that would work nearly as well. And Michelle Obama's second book didn't do nearly as well as her first memoir did. So I definitely think the Obamas have fallen off quite a bit, especially in the aftermath of pushing Biden out and how involved Obama was in that whole situation. I think people have kind of soured on their idea as these like mega Democratic influencers. And it does raise a really important question of who will be the next heir apparent for the Democratic Party. And so far the options, I wrote about this in my new newsletter this week, if I may plug that. It's called Unfit to Print. Please sign up at the Daily Caller. But I went through sort of the natural people who are rising to the top as the people leading the Democratic Party, and none of them are very attractive characters.
No, they gotta, I was trying to convince Marianne Williamson of this today on Rising. We were discussing it. I'm like, they need to look just outside the realm of politics. And I mean, she kind of agrees because she sought the nomination as someone outside politics.
And Stephen A. Smith has been throwing his name out.
Far the most
polling really well.
Smartest of those kinds of ideas. Find someone from business or entertainment or sports who is well-liked and interesting to people, who's a provocative figure that people want to listen to, and they'll get attention. But the Democratic Party, much more so than the Republican Party as constituted right now, is very much a wait your turn kind of organization where you've been in line forever and now it's your turn. And I don't see that breaking up anytime. Like, they're still, because they're elite media gatekeepers. The people who help you jockey for positions by saying, ooh, Pete Buttigieg is really coming on as a strong contender. Or, oh, what about Josh Shapiro? Like, they're set on those familiar names. And those people have strengths and weaknesses, but they're all political figures.
Yes.
They're all politicians. They're all inside government figures. And I don't think the kinds of gatekeepers in elite media and in the Democratic Party who make those decisions or help manifest that into reality are dead set. They're traditionalists.
Yes, and I mean, they have this sort of holy trinity of the Democratic National Committee, the mega donors via the billionaires, and then the corporate media establishment. Those three work in conjunction with one another to decide who the Democratic nominee, or at least a massive figure in the party, is going to be. And
this time they literally decided who the nominee was going to be.
Right,
with no pretense of an election.
Like, the emperor has no clothes. Like, they got rid of all of the pretense and just selected it themselves.
Yes.
But that is traditionally how the Democratic primary process has worked. And I mean, not only is that process really divorced from the people, but the other problem is that when the Democrats do go to the grassroots, they're looking at a really small subset of Americans who are really hyper-progressive. Mm-hmm. So when they take cues from the base of the party's primary electorate, they just keep getting crazier. And so, like, the DNC has been sort of intoning that they want to get more moderate, but the base wants to get more progressive. And so you get this weird mishmash of candidates who are like Tim Walz, who aesthetically are moderate, right? Like a Midwestern white guy. But the policies are totally deranged and separate from the average American person. And so I just don't know how they square that circle.
I think it would also be interesting to see how it might work in the future on the Republican side if there was no Trump and there wasn't such an obvious successor in J.D. Vance. It's just going to be J.D. Vance. But pretend that for some reason he decides not to run, or family issues, or whatever it is. It would be interesting to see how they decide, because this, the triumvirate on the conservative side of, like, conservative media, financial interests, and leadership of the party, didn't want Trump again, right? Conservative media tried to force Ron DeSantis on the people, and they were rejected. They were absolutely rejected. Some of the moneyed interests were between DeSantis and Nikki Haley, and the party was for basically trying anyone other than Trump, I think, and just none of that worked. But that might be unique to Trump. Now, I don't think that's really going to be tested, because I foresee everybody kind of just lining up on the right behind J.D. Vance. But if that were not the case, it would be interesting to see if that phenomena would be replicated.
That is a really interesting point, because even though the GOP grassroots is not as aggressively activist as the grassroots left, they still clearly have a lot of control over the party's direction in terms of candidates and policy.
Yeah.
But one problem that J.D. Vance won't solve is the down ballot races, which Trump has provided a massive lift to House and Senate candidates for the past 12 years. And based on the recent Wisconsin election and the Supreme Court and the Florida special elections, when Trump is not on the ballot, the Republicans are going to have a hard time figuring out how to replicate that boost.
Yeah, they have not figured that one out. That's their million-dollar question, is how to address that issue. That does it for us today. We'll have more free media coming up later. Stay tuned.